Welcome back, everyone, to round two of the ERA Season 6. As we began the stream, we were just following Darius Milevsky having a little spin, but he has set the fastest time so far in qualifying. He gave Christian a good run for his money for a while, but after an unlucky incident was out of the lead of the race. So I'm sure he will be very hungry today to see if he can actually get that top spot. In second place right now we have Dave Young, who's out on track. With this far, he has a very small gap down to or up to Smilevsky in first position, and I'm sure he'll also be hungry to get that win. Like we mentioned last season in Split 3, he was pretty dominant at the top, and I'm sure he's still trying to get those race wins that he know he can get. As of now, there's about a zero point 0.2 gap between them, which is definitely not impossible to close. We do have to remember that this is practice, so the drivers might not be driving as hard as they can, but it could be indicative of the pecking order during the race. Further down the list in 8th, right now in the pits, we have Friedman, who is in the top position of the AM drivers here in the practice session. We have around 26 minutes remaining of the practice session, so we could still see some changes, but the guys are right now just trying to get used to the track and the lower temperatures. I went into the Discord chat with the drivers just before starting the stream, and multiple drivers right now are struggling with the temperatures, not having practiced enough in the cold conditions that they are currently facing. We have one pre-race interview lined up today with Thomas Hagen, who is a fellow Norwegian and a personal friend of mine who wanted to be able to hop on stream and give a little talk. And we're going to talk with him a bit about how he feels the new structure is. He was driving in Split 3 last season and is driving in the Silver Split this season, which is technically a bump up. So I want to talk with him a little bit about his expectations for the season and how he feels about the promotion. So, good evening, Thomas, and welcome into the streaming studio chat. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good to hear. So, I just talked about how you have technically been promoted, but it's also, we have seen some structural changes going from 3 splits to 4. You're now in the silver split, which is a bump up from where you were. What does that do with your expectations for the season?
Um, I'm still looking at silver as where I was last year, kind of. So the technical bump up for me wouldn't have come unless I was pro am.
Hmm.
I'm very happy to be where I am. I think uh, silver is allowing me to uh, compete against people on my level, and I'm excited to be actually be able to put down uh, a race that's actually competitive.
Hmm. Because you did have some unlucky races last season. You were able to score a lot of good points, but then you also had other races where you couldn't really deliver what you knew you could. I know you have one race where you were able to get a penalty twice for speeding in the pit lane on the same lap. Have you
Yes.
worked with that kind of stuff in the off season?
Yes, I have. I've become much more careful with pit entries because gaining half a second or losing half a second in the pits is not what is going to win me the race, but it's definitely what might lose me the race.
Hmm. So Suzuka is, I've never driven it myself, but it looks to be quite a technical track. What is your thoughts on the track?
It is definitely technical. There's a lot of corners you just have to coast, which feels weird because I really want to be either throttle or on the brakes. Um, but and getting the flow is definitely hard. It is. one difficult corner after another. So being able to be consistent here is going to gain you a lot, I think.
Hmm. Have you put in a lot of practice on the track?
I've put in what I feel is enough for me. I've been doing sessions until I basically feel I can't get any more out of the sessions
Hmm.
and taking my breaks. So I feel confident in my practice time. Yes.
Good. So you have fun getting that last bit of practice, and I'm looking forward to seeing you during the race.
Thank you.
So that was our short talk with Thomas. Personally, I think it's good to hear that he's not getting stressed out about being in a new split, because as he mentioned, he's basically where he would be placed anyway. But it's more a case of me thinking, at least, that now we have split 2 and upper split 3 more or less mixed into the silver split, which means he will be facing some faster drivers than before. But again, he's also in good company with split 3 friends from last season like Fengler and Young. You can see here that the order hasn't really changed a lot during this practice session. Uh, the guys are putting in, I would say, rather consistent times. I can see that Young has improved ever so slightly, but they are driving more or less the same. But the interesting part about practice is always that you do not know who is on race pace and who is on quali pace. So just to say an example, I'm not saying this is the way it is, but if Dave Young is on race pace while Smilevsky would be on quali pace, that could mean that Smilevsky would have more of a problem during qualifying than what it seems like right here. But only time can tell. And while we are still in the last 20 minutes of the practice session, we're going to take a quick look at the track guide for Suzuka to give us a little bit more of an insight into what is going on this track. Once again, we're back with the racing, this time looking at Robbie Melko, who, while we were away, improved his lap by a lot, now climbing up into fourth position on the leaderboard. We can also see that Chmielewski, who is now also in the pits, improved his lap by quite a bit, now having a best time of 2:00:462. Dave Young here right now on a lap with a negative delta is now further behind than before. And I honestly couldn't tell you if he is now trying to push for a faster lap to get that gap smaller to play a bit of the psychological game, or if he's still trying to take a little bit easier. Because see Thomas now, oh, not, not doing so hot right there. Back in the pits, he is currently in fifth, so he has a really strong time. Interesting is also that Melko is actually in the AM split, now sitting in fourth. So I am predicting that a lot of the silver guys are going to start pulling faster laps once qualifying actually begins in 16 minutes. Right now, Correa is also out on track. He is, as of this moment, the car with the most improvement to his lap time. He did lose it a little bit there in that corner, but he's still gaining about a 0.3 for this lap. Let's see if he can continue nailing those corners to get a solid lap time in. We can see that an improvement of 0.2 would, as of right now, put him 2 spots up, but he now has an improvement of 0.5 on this lap. In the midfield, it is very tight with times of around 2:02, 2:03. Seems like he's running into a little bit of traffic there, but hopefully that car is not going to slow him down too much as they go into the spoon, as we learned it was called on the track guide video. Here we have a car sideways. I wonder if that was maybe Stancer looking at the car, but I don't have a yellow flag listed right now, so I would not be able to tell you exactly who it is. It looks like it's Fierro, also driving a McLaren. He is listed as yellow flag. Korea is catching up a bit to the car in front, but the space isn't too tight between them just yet, as they now made their way through this or to the start finish straight. And crossing the line, he did improve his lap time and is now up in 18th. The Irvin also out on a good lap now with an improvement of 0.3, which would actually be able to net him 4 spots, it seems, as of right now. I'm not seeing too many yellows right now, and the guys predicted some carnage for this track in the Discord before I went on the stream, which has to do with the technicality of the track, and especially during the S's when you're a tight field with those technical corners with a lot of cars. And if we do see a mix of the silver and AM cars, which it looks like right now, you might have drivers of different experience level, even though they're at about the same quality pace, which could lead to, like they said on the Discord, carnage going through the S's on lap 1. Irvin right now at 0.45 improvement on his lap. Still seeming in control of that car. Irvin is also actually one of only 2 Honda drivers in this split. You can definitely see that the most popular cars here is the BMW and the Aston Martin. We also have quite a few drivers in the Lambo this season. So it seems like the drivers in this split have favored front engine cars. Which basically I am no expert on this myself, but from what I know, a front engine car is going to be more stable, but is also more likely to induce some understeer going into a corner, meaning that you, even though the car can be quite forgiving, you have to know how to get it to point the direction you want. But for these drivers, that seems to be a popular choice to make. We're now following Irvan going through the last few corners with 16 and 17. And right now he still has a 0.47 improvement right now, which could shake up the order a little bit. And getting in, he actually gained one spot. Meaning that, yeah, my assumption is that the cars in front of him also improved their times while he was out on his lap. Now we have Lawrence also out on track in his Bentley, going quite fast. And I talked with Christian a little bit about this earlier today. He's very fast in that car, where traditionally one would think that the Bentley is usually sacrificing a bit of speed for predictability and for consistency. The Bentley is considered a great car for beginners, but it's also, as far as I know, normally not considered a car that you can go very fast in, which means that Lawrence is able to get that car up to good speed and keep his speed going. And especially on a technical track like this, that is an achievement. Going further down the list, we can see Melko is still the top AM driver, but we have Friedman, who is the second fastest AM driver, out on a lap now. He is on a negative delta, but this could be an outlap. He's also sticking closely to Russo, so it might be a case of the traffic doing a little bit to slow him down. No, my apologies. It's car number 18, I think. Which, no, there's no car number 18 here, so that was not it. Well, he's back in the pits. We can take a look at Calabed in his Ferrari. He's also on a good lap so far, and that delta just keeps becoming greener and greener, looking to be a beautiful lap if you can put it all together. Doing a good job of maximizing the outside curb in that corner. And he put himself up in 6th with a good lap. Fengler is now back out onto the track and is also driving right now with positive delta. It seems like most of these guys are getting some solid improvements here in the later half of practice. Also, like we talked about last time, the quali setup this year is that you have one quali session, but the first half of it is reserved for the AM split, and the second half is reserved to silver, which means that the AM guys get to go straight out there with all the muscle memory work into their bodies from practice, while silver have to wait for about 10 minutes before they are allowed to go out on track, which could make potentially a lot of different, especially if you are a driver like me who still struggles with consistency, just going straight from that practice and trying to get as many laps in as possible to basically get the most out of the car and try to guarantee yourself staying inside of the track limits for as much as you can. Going straight out into that qualifying session is a huge advantage. So that is something that these silver guys are missing out on. But then again, it is most fair to give that advantage to the AM split. Because one of the most important factors in the AM split isn't necessarily lap time, but consistency, which of course goes for all the splits. Consistency is key, but you are also when you are in the AM split, you're likely to be less experienced, like myself, and therefore you have had less time behind the wheel working on that very same consistency. Right now, we do have a lot of cars in the pits, but Matthew East has now made his way out in his Audi and is on what looks to be his first lap of the practice session. Yes, exactly. Like you can see on the board on the left, he has 0 laps in this session. The same goes for a lot of these last few guys out there on track. And the outlap is done and dusted, and he's now getting ready to try and go fast. Tires might not be up to temp yet, as it looks like he is losing grip ever so slightly in some of these corners. Oh, and losing the car there. Another driver doing good right now is Dave Cook with an improvement of 0.4. He is so far about halfway on the track. Going to through turn 11, making his way towards turn 12, getting ready for the spoon. Just think that's a funny name for a corner. That's why I love saying it so much. But losing the car there, going into the spoon, regaining control, but having lost a bit of time. Uh, he keeps losing time now that he could not get his speed right going out of that corner. Perksag, the second Honda driver, is on another good lap trying to improve. Is right now overall in 11th, but is looking to climb 1 spot if he can keep this improvement going for the rest of the race. Making his way through the long right-hander turn 12, getting towards turn 13, the spoon. Let's see if he can keep the car under control going in here. Looked to me like he lost the rear end just ever so slightly, but not enough to lose him any meaningful amount of time. We also have a yellow flag out on track with Nathan follows, but it does not look like that will be impacting this lap. And that's been cleared up anyway, so we are good to go, and Hersek can push to start finish. He does have some traffic in front, but I think they are far enough ahead that it's not going to make any difference. Crossing the line here, he ended with an improvement of 0.01, so very consistent to his last lap time, and it seems like he did lose some time in those last few corners. Lawrence out on another lap, still in fourth position. 2 minutes left of the practice. We still have a lot of these guys in the pit, so I'm assuming a lot of people have now started looking at their setups for qualifying and are just getting ready. Another yellow this time for Herseg, who just teleported to pits as to not impede the other drivers. I think I also mentioned in the last stream that yellow flags, a lot of these guys have gotten good at teleporting to the garage during qualifying and practice sessions where you want to just get out of the way of the other cars. Where in the race, it's a whole different equation where you do lose a lot of time by teleporting to the pits. So, depending on where you are in the lap, it might be beneficial for you to actually drive the lap even if your car is severely damaged. Lawrence losing the rear end a little bit there, losing him some time. But the delta is still in the green, so he could still get ever so slightly some improvement. But he has to really make sure to stick the entire rest of the lap. And as he's about to cross the start finish, I spoke a little too soon about that. A lot of these drivers seem to be losing time in turn 16 and 17, which, looking at the track map, turn 16 and 9 are definitely the hardest braking zones of this track. So going into turn 16, which is a very, very sharp right-hander, and trying to maintain your speed going into turn 17 can definitely be a challenge. Jardine also out on track with some good improvements. You can also see, or I can see on the timing boards, that our dear Horsebox has now joined the server and has no laps to his name. So hopefully he got his practice in before the race started, but I did hear some rumors on Discord that he did not, so he might be going straight to qualifying. Jardine getting in some extra little bit of pit lane practice at the end of the practice session. Like we talked about with Thomas in that interview, it's always good to have some practice with the pit lane because it could lose you a lot of time. Like that race last season where Hagen got two 30-second stop and go penalties. If I remember correctly, he was serving his penalty and got another stop and go on his way out of the pit after serving that penalty. With practice over, we are about to enter into the qualifying. And this is where these guys are going to show their true strength. Looking at the top three with Smilevsky, Fengler, and Young, I personally think that could be rather indicative of the results we're going to see. But again, it's never guaranteed seeing the practice times and how they're driving in practice. They could be driving different fuel loads, different setups, and really just having different goals for the practice session. And here we go. The practice session has started. So far, most of these guys are still staying in the pit lane, but we have one car going out, which is Friedman. Staying relatively mid-track here, weaving a little bit on that short straight to try and get some temperature into these tires. The track temperature is only 9 degrees, which is very, very cold. More and more guys are now making their way out of the garage. Car 33, or position 33, which is Oh, that's Horsebox going out a little bit too early. He has to wait for his turn. Like we just talked about, it's the AM cars go out first, and then after that, the silver guys get to have their turn. Which also means that theoretically, the silver guys could lose some quality time if an AM car is on a valid lap and then spend some time getting back into the pits. Friedman making his way out through the spoon, going down the back straight of the track, about to cross under the bridge, which the helicam does not seem to enjoy that bridge too much. It seems to get a little confused. Here he started his first lap. Going through turn one, making sure to hit those curbs this time. If we take a look at the in-game HUD, actually, never mind. I'm not getting that tire info. I was thinking it would be interesting to take a look at the tire temps and see how these guys were doing with their tire pressure. But seeing as that info is not relayed to me, that is sadly nothing we can talk about. Out there right now, compared to his practice time, he is on a negative delta. But this is also his first lap, so if they are still struggling with those temps, they could still need one more lap of aggressive driving to get them up to temp. And of course, it's going to depend a lot on your setup. 'Cause setting the tire temps is something that I don't understand how it works. But what I know is that on colder tracks, you should bump up your pressure a little bit to make sure those tires are in the right spot, because the air in the tires are not going to expand the same amount as on a hot track. Which, when racing for a long distance, that's definitely something to take into account. But during quali, you could also change the values a little bit to make sure that the tires can get to temp quicker for those shorter stints. Which, looking at the timings right now, it doesn't seem like any of the AM guys have done. But again, I might be talking out of my ass on this, and it might not be as easy of a fix as what I have been led to possibly believe. Crossing the finish line right here with a 2:02.857, which is the fastest time in quali so far. But right behind him, we have Oaks now crossing the finish line and putting in a 2:02.6. These guys have 5 minutes left, meaning that depending on fuel loads, they can still do a few laps without going in. But if some of these guys are planning on going in, and with the tire temp issues, they might be a little short on time to get in those good laps. We can see the list starting to populate a little bit more. We now have our temporary first, second, third, fourth now set. With Dogmeat on his second lap, now has an improvement of 0.4, which could potentially land him with a decent lap time. Right now at 2:06. He was in range of overtaking the fifth position, but right now he did lose some time. You can also see Becker, the guy that won the last AM split round, is now also out on track. We also have a yellow car 20 or position 25, car 13, Henson, but that has now been cleared. Becker also with one lap in has finished his outlap and is now on his first real quality run, missing the apex a bit there but not going too wide. That did, however, cost him some time going out onto this short straight, where compared to his practice times, he is now a second below. See, multiple of the guys who have set their times are now set to improve with green deltas across the board. Right now, Paul Anderson has the biggest improvement. Paul here making his way through the spoon, staying in control of that car. Not quite maximizing that corner, but making sure to get in nice and tight for the next one. Definitely hitting that curb as much as possible. Now moving down the back straight with an improvement of 1.5 seconds. So if he can keep this together for the rest of the lap, he's definitely going to see his result improve by a lot. Oh, and Paul hitting the wall there, losing all of his improvements. He was at a 0.7 improvement, which could have net him a really good time. Oaks here, the current AM pole sitter, is at an improvement of 0.7 himself, which could help him solidify that lead. Also see that a lot of these guys have gone in and started a second stint, where most of them did 1 or 2 laps for their first stint before going in. You also have racing in this league a tire allotment, meaning that you cannot spend an infinite amount of tires in practice and qualifying. So what most guys do is save 2 sets for the race, depending on strategy, sometimes a single set, and then try to use the remaining sets during practice and qualifying. Personally, oh, and Oaks losing the car a little bit there. As I was about to say, personally, I tried to leave 3 sets for the race, which was due to me being prone to spinning. And if you have just changed your tires for the second stint and you spin and absolutely shred those tires, it's always good to have a second set. Because if you swap at about the halfway point, having a fresh set of tires, that time you're losing in the pits, if that helps you not spin more than necessary, it keeps you out of the wall and gives you better lap times for half an hour of racing, it might be worth it. Which, of course, I try not to use them, but every now and then I had to. Becker now made his way up into 5th, just crossing the finish line there and looking to improve for the second lap in a row. As of now, he is around 2 seconds slower than pole sitter Friedman. Looked to me like he lost the card ever so slightly right there, but it was a little difficult to see. Touching the grass a bit, losing his improvements, but quickly gaining them back. You can definitely see that Suzuka does seem to be a technical track where there's a lot of points where these guys keep making small mistakes, but that during a full lap could cost them quite some time. And we have passed the 10-minute mark, so qualifying is supposed to be over for the AM guys. So these guys are, as far as I'm aware, obligated to return to the pits instead of finishing their fast laps. Which is going to be a little bit of a bummer for guys like Stancer, who is now at a 0.9 improvement. But theoretically, they could also cross that finish line and teleport into the pits. Melko also on a good lap here with zero point 0.7 seconds of improvement. Losing a bit of time going through corner 15 and 16. Going out onto the straight, getting a good exit, regaining some time, and finishing with an improvement of 1.6, netting him the pole for the AM class. Going straight out into the sand right there. And back into the pits. See, now the silver guys have made their way out on track. Fengler right now classified as the highest placed of the split three, the silver split drivers. And we have 4 yellows on track right now, so I think some of these guys were now caught off guard by their tires being so cold. Uh, they're also on their out laps. They do have room to take it a little easier, but if you do want to create a gap to the guy that's on your tail, and he's not creating that gap by himself, you have no choice. With how competitive racing sometimes can be, I'm sure some of these guys could try and get a toe on their quali lap. For those at home not too familiar with racing, giving someone a toe means that your car is punching a hole in the air, meaning that the car behind is going to experience a lot less drag. And with less drag and less air resistance, it's easier for the car to go faster. Spengler now out on his relap, going back onto the back straight. So far, he looks to be doing a good time, gaining time on this straight right here. Going into the corner, hitting the apex. Might have gone ever so slightly wide there, outside of track limits. And right there, making his way to the top of the leaderboard. Hagen just putting in a lap, netting him second position of the silver drivers. Actually being fastest driver in Sector 1. You can also see that Melko still has the fastest Sector 3 time, but I am assuming one of the silver guys is gonna start improving their laps and beat that time soon. So following Kalabad, he is through the S's and has gained some time compared to his previous lap. Ooh, but losing the car right there, having to either get back on track with those tires or teleporting back to the pits, as we just saw. Our dear Horsebox also on a good lap with zero point 0.7 of improvement, also having just made his way out of the S's, making his way towards the first aggressive right-hander off this track, getting his car through beautifully, maximizing those curbs. Ooh, but he did look to be outside of track limits right there. And again, it's always these tracks also handle track limits in different ways. It seems like he did invalidate the lap as he chose to go off. But as I was saying, on some tracks, the track limit is not actually the white line. They usually are, but on certain tracks, in certain corners, you can abuse the corner a little bit extra to gain a few tenths or hundreds of a second. Because always, if you don't have to slow your car down enough to stay on the inside of that line, or if you can cut enough to go on the inside or the outside of the white line on the inside of the corner, there is time to be gained. Dave Young also looking right there to have gone off ever so slightly. He is going down the straight, and he's still going fast, so his lap might be valid. It's always a little difficult to see where exactly the car places, but since this is a video game, the game can always measure exactly where you are, and the game knows exactly where the track limit is, so it can definitely enforce that pretty accurately. And crossing the line, he now has the fastest time, which means that the lap is definitely still valid. So we have a bit of a shakeup in the top with Smilevsky now holding that second position. Fengler down in third, but still going quite fast. He now has half a second of improvement on his lap, which would put him back in second position. It's also cool to see that with 2 minutes left, we still have 3 AM drivers within the top 10. But as I said, that does not have to be indicative of race pace because putting together a good quality lap is about driving one good lap. Putting together a race is about driving a lot of laps that has to be not quite as fast but still fast. Uh, it goes without saying that once your tires start going, once you start being tired, you lose focus. It is a lot easier to mess up. Hagen just improving his time a bit, jumping up into fifth. A little bit further down, Irvin is also on a very good lap here. Hitting that apex, but not fully taking advantage of that outside. Going into this heavy braking zone and losing the car going onto the grass. Another driver going quite fast now is Christie, who just crossed the finish line. Improving his lap by quite a bit, but not enough to climb the leaderboard. He currently has a very small gap of about 400th up to Mooney in 17th. I should say overall 17th. I don't have a timing, unfortunately, splitting the splits. Irvin having now made his way through the S's on another lap with quite a bit of improvement. Getting that car, I was about to say up to speed, but down to speed to make his way through that corner. Going through the long right-hander, making his way to the spoon, where we have seen a few guys losing their car on their way into this corner. Hitting that curb beautifully. Trying to hug that inside, but not getting all the way in, but maximizing the exit curb. Gaining a lot of time on this straight. Still using those curbs now going into the last two corners. This is where he lost it last lap. This time he remains in control of the car. Hitting all those curves, but seemed to steer out just a little bit wide before starting to point his car back in the right direction. And crossing the line with 0.4 of improvements, jumping up to overall 11th position. And qualifying has ended. We can see Kalabad now about to cross the line. He does not seem to have a valid time yet, so he might have struggled a bit during this qualifying. Hopefully he can get it together for the race. Here we can see Cole Mooney, our dear horse box, having been playing another game while waiting. So that's why he missed the mark a bit going out on that first stint for qualifying. While we wait for the guys to get their setups in order for the race, we'll take a look at the beautiful ERA livery video. The livery designed by Christian Fengler, our in-house livery designer. And we're once again back with the cars. See that Colabed was able to get some improvement on that last lap, get a valid lap in, placing overall 14th, racing from the middle of the pack. We can also see that Nathan Follows was not able to set a valid time for himself and is starting from the very back. He does have company from Dave Cook, only 2 positions ahead. The next car up in silver is Tetley at overall 24th, so he does have quite a few AM split cars to make his way through. But having raced with these guys last season and knowing them, they are not gonna go down without a fight. If they can keep up, they're definitely gonna make him work for that position. But again, we're also all friends here, which is one of the amazing parts about racing in this community. So if Nathan does have great pace, I have faith that they are going to let him through. After all, we have to remember that AM and Silver, they are not racing each other. They're racing within their respective splits. So it's important to show respect to the other drivers that you share the track with. And if you're not racing against them and just sharing the track, you should definitely be respectful and give them the room they need to get the most out of their race. Looking at the overall results, the first 7 positions are held by silver drivers with Dave Young in the front. Like I mentioned in during the practice session, I think he's definitely hungry to get some more race wins after basically dominating Split 3 last year. In second place, we have not last week, 2 weeks ago, because we naturally their break for Easter. We have Christian Fengler, the winner of the last race 2 weeks ago. In third, we have Chmielewski, who is no doubt still going to be on Fengler's tail, trying to get in front. Hopefully, he doesn't have that unlucky incident this time. They are followed by Sky Colgaro and Lawrence and Herzeg. Then in eighth position overall, we have Melko in the AM split. Ninth, 10th, and 11th, we have Hagen, Bellis, and Irvin. 12th, 13th, we have Friedman Oaks. Then we have Calabat, which we talked about a little bit. Further down, we have more silver drivers, Christy, Russo, Korea, Jardine, and Mooney, our dear horse box. Another AM driver, Patton, followed by Bullion in silver, followed by Becker and Stancer in AM. Becker being our last race winner in the AM split. Then after that, like mentioned, Tefley, overall 24th. Then we have a bunch more of our AM guys, East, Kashuk, Vieira, Richards, Dogmeat, Anderson. And then the last three drivers, Cook in silver, Henson in AM, and Follows in silver, who was unfortunately not able to set a valid lap time during qualifying. The guys are doing the last adjustments on their setups. We can see a bunch of them have started flashing their lights, which I'm sure means they're ready to go. Dave Young's car just reloading there, meaning he might have done some last second changes. We do have, and there we go. The formation lap has begun. If I'm not mistaken, we also have one less driver this time than last time. I think we had 34 drivers for the last race, which means that someone might have been unavailable today. But I don't think the other guys are really gonna notice a big difference out on track. Something else that's great about ERA is that we have something called a drop round, released in last season, where your worst race gets dropped from the overall results. So when we drive 6 rounds, your best 5 are going to count, which also means that if you miss a race, you're not really getting penalized too harshly for it. Which I mean, most of us are doing this as a hobby, and that means life can get in the way, and then having that opportunity to miss a race without being penalized is definitely good, especially if you are as competitive as a lot of these guys are. You can see Fengler here really sticking on Young's tail, and the field is getting spread out ever so slightly. Like I've also mentioned on a previous stream, something interesting about ACC is the formation lap, which I think doesn't work as good as it could. Because once the formation lap is over, you have to make sure that you are very close to the other car so that you're able to get into the actual dual file double file configuration. And basically, if you are too far behind, you're going to have to race your socks off to catch back up and get into that position, or else your car will be teleported. Fengler there might be having some sort of issue, having stopped his car. Having stopped the car in turn 11. But as I was saying, if you are not in the correct position when the race starts, you will be teleported, which means that for those guys racing from the very back, if the field is too spread out, they're going to have to race very fast to catch up to be ready for crossing that start line, which can be kind of unfortunate. It has definitely led to more than one stressful situation for me personally. Spengler seems to be back where he is supposed to be, meaning he probably got whatever issues he was having sorted. That's another interesting thing about sim racing. You can have internet issues, or you can have hardware issues, or even issues with the software, which I've seen some people equate that to having mechanical issues in an actual car, which I think is a funny comparison and maybe a preferable way to look at it. But personally, I think with sim racing, that is not supposed to be a factor, as after all, it is a simulation and we want to try and simulate it as perfectly as we can. And for example, having your wheel not respond is not something that normally happens in a real car. I mean, of course, you can have something like Piastri experienced during the first. Oh, and we have a car going off, losing control. That seems to have been Shmilevsky having another unfortunate incident. He's definitely running out of time to catch back up to the field. They are making their way out onto the start-finish straight and are getting into formation, and we are almost ready to go. Shmilevsky has made his way back, so he is ready for the race start. Cars are lining up, and the green light is out, the flags are out, and we are racing. Some of these guys are immediately taking the middle of the track, trying to get ahead. Front of the field is making their way through that first turn without a problem. Oh, and Fengler touching the back of Young, sending him into the wall. Young trying to make his way back onto the track, but that is always hard with these many cars because you do not want to rejoin ruining someone's race. Young having made his way back onto the track, and as of now I can see no yellows, so it might have been a relatively clean race. We do have Colgaro pretty far back, having made his way out onto the track. Now have Fengler in the front. He did get quite a gap from that incident, which I know the first lap always gets looked at by the stewards, so he is probably getting a penalty for that, which will carry over into the next race. But it's definitely very unfortunate for Young, who is now quite far down. And we have our first yellow also involving Young and Russo. They're back out onto the track, and we can see in the back there are multiple cars going together. This race was going relatively clean, but here in turn 11, we had a bunch of cars making contact. We can see Mooney has also dropped to the very back of the field. Now passing a few cars parked in the wall, Cook and Henson. Henson back in the pits. Cook trying to maneuver that car onto the track. Field is still rather tight, but it's now starting to spread out. We can see Fengler here in the front with a 2-second gap to Smilevsky. If he can drive like last time, he's definitely going to control this race and be able to cruise across the finish line. But it is also a result of that first contact, which, I mean, at least to me, it did look a bit like Fengler was at fault. But the stewards are going to have a look at it, being able to watch it back. The back of the field, Sky is very close on Herzeg's tail, with Hagen just behind. So we might be set here for another three-way battle. Hagen having... oh, and Sky going off there. Losing the car a little bit, making his way back on track, but letting Hagen go through. This did also let Herzeg run away a little bit and get a bit of a breather. Fastest lap right now belongs to Korea, who is still in the thick of it, in overall 11th position. Now chasing Friedman, who is second place in the AM split. And a yellow for Kalabat, who has hit the wall, losing the car a bit. His front light is flashing, which is indicative of some front damage. Still not making his way onto the track, trying to keep out of the way for all these other cars. Unless he takes the outside here and sneaks back in, I think he's gonna have to stay on the outside for quite a bit because he has a few more cars passing, being very passive there, being very respectful towards the other drivers. Now having at least made his way onto the asphalt, and he is back on track. He's now just behind Nathan Follows, who is now in overall 26th, having made great improvements from his unfortunate start of this race. We see Oaks on Jardine's tail. That Porsche versus the Lexus. As I talked about very a lot of times, that Porsche is dangerous. I was never able to drive that car good ever. Which it's a very fast car, but it's also inclined to murder you. But as long as you are a driver with enough experience in the car to keep it under control, you should not have a problem overtaking the other cars eventually. But we also have to remember that the other cars are going to defend as well as they can. Dave Young in overall 17th, making his way, trying to catch up to Pattinen. Which, as I was saying, Pattinen is probably going to try and keep up and give Young a run for his money. But seeing as these guys are friends, I mean, all of us, since we're friends, he is hopefully going to let him through if Young has the adequate pace. Which, looking at it right now, it seems like Patton is actually, and there Young is through, doing a little bit of a undercut maneuver in that corner. Despite getting less of an good exit, he is able to get past. He now has 3 silver drivers as his next targets, who are not likely to let him through easily. We have another battle between Irvin and Bellis. Now on the straight, Bellis seeming to be going ever so slightly faster, but he might not have the time to get past. Increasing the gap a little bit there, but Irvin going slightly wide, giving Bellis a little... Oh, and they touch a bit. A little bit more of a touch. Bellis letting go a little bit. Despite the contact, that did seem like some quite respectful. Oh, and Bella's right there touching, I think, Oaks. It seemed to me like we had a car getting back onto the track, making Bella's a little nervous, even though I think there should have been enough space without me being 100% sure about that. You see Mooney chasing Dogmeat. Both part of the ERA crew. Mooney, our dear horsebox, helping us out with the streaming, and Dogmeat helping out with the stewarding. Dogmeat losing the car there, giving Mooney an easy pass. Further up, we can see Friedman now actually chasing Jardine. So he has put himself between Oaks and Jardine, which must be frustrating for Oaks. But it does allow Friedman to try and keep up with Jardine, and being able to chase always tends to give a little bit of a speed boost. Hagen seems set for another battle with Sky. Sky going off track once again, but getting back on without too many problems. We saw earlier Hagen making his way past, but they now seems to have switched again. I think I might have spotted a little bit of blinking from Hagen's front lights, which might mean he has picked up a bit of damage, but I'm not too sure on that. Guy seems to be running away a bit now, having created a 1.2 second gap for himself. Here we have Tetley racing more or less side by side with, I think it's Dancer. Yes, just got past Dancer. And at the same time, Viero made his way through. They did also touch a little bit, meaning Stancer might have lost just enough speed for Viero to be able to sneak through as well. Stancer is right on his tail, likely to want to make his way past, going down the start-finish straight. Mooney right now chasing up to Kuchuk and getting past on the inside, making their way towards the sharp right. The car got unsettled a bit, but he keeps it under control. Losing a little bit of time to the car behind right here, but still in control. Car behind trying to make a dive. They're now side by side, but Horsebox is able to pull out in front. You can also see Christie trying to get in there, trying to make himself seen, showing himself in the mirror, telling them that, hello, I am also a part of this battle, so you guys better be careful. Korea right now on Friedman's tail, still trying to make his way past. And we can see that Oaks has actually passed Friedman, meaning Oaks is now in second spot of the AM drivers, ninth overall. Fengler going into the pits after barely 10 minutes has passed, so you gotta wonder if he has picked up a bit of damage to his car. Korea here trying to take the right, going towards turn one, staying on the inside, and oh, the two cars touch again. But I think I might not put the fault for this on Korea because it looked like he was leaving enough space. Chmielewski now cruising in the front, having hopefully gotten his his one crash out of his system after the formation lap. Because as far as I can remember, he only had that one crash during the last race, but it seemed to definitely take away any chance of a podium for him. And from what I've seen, he is a fast driver, being able to drive pretty cleanly, but accidents can happen to any one of us. Further back, Viero, is in the pits. I was seeing him being close to Dave Young. Russo out on track, catching up to Stancer. Russo, being a silver driver, is not really racing Stancer for points, but he needs to make his way past Stancer if he's going to be able to chase after Tetley. The gap between these guys seeming more or less pretty consistent. We do, as of now, have actually a great mix on the overall results of Silver and AM guys, so it's fun to see them blend this well. And Russo just now, making his way past Dancer but losing the car, getting back in control but allowing Horsebox to make his way past, meaning Russo now also has to get past the Horsebox before he can make his way up to Tetley to chase him. Horsebox having a pretty good race here, having been at the very back early in the race, now up in overall 14th. As of right now, we don't really have any battles going on, but Bellis chasing Paul Anderson's Porky is the closest to cars as of right now. Taking two very different lines there. Oh, and you can definitely see Bellis having some aero damage on the front of his car. How much it really affects him is hard to tell when you're not in the car, but looking at it, it is going to cost him at least, I would say, a few tenths per lap by the looks of it. That's another interesting thing driving, that you can usually tell if something is wrong with your car. You can feel pretty quickly, at least if you have enough seat time, how the car is supposed to feel and if something is wrong. And that goes even for me, a slow accident prone driver, just from having enough seat time. I can tell when something feels wrong with the car. Trying to make a move there and unable to get past. Paul Anderson really defending against Bellis. And again, these two guys are not actually racing each other for points. But it's got to be motivating for these AM drivers being able to keep the silver drivers in the back of them. Or in back of them, I should say. The Billion has caught up to Correa, both in McLarens, with a point 0.4 gap. Having caught up to him, he should be able to try and make a move pretty soon. Also paying a bit of attention to the timings, looking at Bellis if he's about to make a move on Anderson. So, okay, that was not the... I'm sorry about that. There we go. I was going to try and play with the layout a little bit, but I think we'll leave that be for another time. The gap has increased a bit again, so Korea seems to be able to run away with this a bit. Further up in the field, overall 5th and 6th, Melko and Oaks are possibly set for a battle. Oaks in that Porsche against Melko in the BMW, both German cars, but with a wildly different design philosophy. Oaks losing the rear of the car a bit there, which is the scary part about the Porsche. It can step out very quickly from under you. Further back, Iki Sky is trying to make a move on Fengler. Fengler still has fastest lap, but after his pit stop, he's down in overall 24th, which puts him at 5th last of the silver split guys. This, by the looks of it right now, this race could cost Fengler quite a bit of points in the overall standings. But if he can keep that car out on track for the remaining 43 minutes, he might still be able to climb quite a bit. As you can see, Fengler is one of only 4 drivers having made their pit stop. But having all of the guys who have pitted seems to have done 5-lap first stints, which means their tires are really gonna feel it towards the end of this race. Fengler was able to run away a bit there, with Sky now quite a bit down. With Hagen now up in overall 4th, something has to happen with Sky to have put him in that position. Yeah, I actually forgot to double check if Sky is one of the guys who have pitted, and yes, he is. So that's why Sky has fallen down to overall 25th, which means if he pitted without too much damage, he should be able to get out in front pretty well once the other guys start pitting. Lawrence now 0.5 behind Chmielewski, trying to get that first position. The rumors say that he did have quite some time to practice on this track, and as I was talking about earlier in the stream, he is very fast in that Bentley, which is normally considered more of a beginner car. But you can definitely see that it can be just as fast, if not faster, than these other cars put in the hands of a talented driver. Friedman here trying to make a move on Jardine, which Friedman being an AM driver, he now is trying to overtake one of the silver drivers, which again, it's always cool to see that these AM guys can keep up. He had to brake a little early there, did not have quite the confidence in that move, but he is still right on his tail. We now have more cars pitting. Herczag has gone in and is naturally tumbling down the current standings because of it. Friedman being overall seventh, but third of the AM drivers, is giving Jardine a run for his money. Birchback Christie is also setting up to get past Stancer. Mooney, still having a great race, has actually made his way up to 12th without me noticing. So he has been able to chase down both Tetley and Russo, while Christie is now working on getting past Stancer to take up that hunt for Tetley. And we have a yellow flag with multiple cars involved. Seems to be a little bit of a pileup right there with Bellis and Follows involved. Bellis now finally getting his car going again, allowing Fengler to climb up to 21st. 21st. Pardon my English. Priest is still right on Stancer's tail, not quite having the confidence in trying to take that inside. Both going a little wide, but getting some good speed out of that corner, braking for this hard right-hander. Making their way, hard left-hander, I'm sorry. No, hard right and then hard left. Okay, that is noted. I've made their way through turn 17, now crossing the start-finish line. Making their way to turn 1 is where Christie is going to try and make a move. Stancer closing off that inside a little bit, but Christie now going for it. And he is through. And here we have, seems to be some confusion with Dogmeat when he went into the pits, which seemed to cause Herkseg and Sky a little bit of confusion, but they did get through. Cook here with a yellow, having gone off track, trying to make his way back out to get out onto that last straight and actually going straight to the pits, taking the long pit entry instead of the short one. Further up, Friedman is actually past Jardine, who has gone off track, making his way back out in front of Correa, I think. Friedman now having caught up to the top two split for the AM split drivers. Going wide there, but making his way back onto the track in a tidy manner. You can actually see Oaks and Melko really battling for that first position. But again, if they are not careful, this is going to be a great opportunity for Friedman to make his way past. Looking at the map, we do have quite some rather tight racing in multiple spots out on the track. Friedman still being on their tail and catching up a little by little. Because naturally, when you are battling, you are going to have to take some slower lines either to defend yourself or to try to get in a position where you can get past. And going off that ideal line is going to lose you time while defending to either block or when attacking, when trying to go for gap. If that gap closes, you're going to have to brake just a little bit extra to not hit the car in front. And that is ultimately going to slow both of the battling cars down. Friedman is now getting closer and closer by just a little bit for more or less each corner. Oh, and we have contact between our number 1 and 2. This is giving Friedman a great opportunity to make his way through there. and he is now the leading car for the AM split, with Oaks and Melko having to make their way back on track, which means they now have. Oh, and Irvin seems to have gotten caught up in this as well, having hit the wall. It could have been an unsafe rejoin on one of the guys, but it's difficult to tell without having seen it. And actually sustaining enough damage to teleport to pits, having been far enough ahead on his lap to put him in third position, but he is going to both take a time penalty in the pits and then having to fix his car. Friedman now in overall fifth position, having a great cushion between himself and the other AM cars. Friedman now in overall third position after Irvin and Smilevsky have both pitted, which leaves Lawrence in the very front and Hagen in overall second position. So going further down, Herzeg is back out on track and is now the front runner of the silver split cars who have already pitted, having done 2 laps now on his second stint with 34 minutes remaining of the race. Dave Young, having set the fastest lap, is now chasing Nathan Follows. With that, Austin Martin making his move on the McLaren, taking that inside, forcing the McLaren a little bit wide, and he is through. Now in overall 20th position. Out of all the cars who have pitted, he is now in 5th position. With Smilevsky having made his way back onto the track, now on fresh cold tires, but still making his way past Paul Anderson, it seems. No, that was Richards. I'm sorry. Now chasing Paul Anderson. Ike Sky having catch up to Herzeg, now trying to make his move. Sky now being the... Oh! And Herzeg losing the car a bit there, causing a yellow, getting back on track. Fengler getting passed without incident. Which means our top 3 for the pitted cars are now Smilevsky, Sky, and Fengler, with Herzeg trying to chase Fengler down. Melko on Oak's tail trying to get his position back after their contact earlier. Trying for that inside and almost touching the back of his car. Seems to have scared Oaks a little bit, who did not take full advantage of Melko having to go wide and brake a little more aggressively. But now creating a little bit of space for himself again. Further back, Smilevsky just made his way past Anderson and is now chasing Stancer, who is pitted as of now. Smilevsky is passed and has, as of now, a 32-second gap up to Christie. And Russo, being a silver driver, has caught up to Melko as well. I'm sure he's eager to get past the AM cars. They do also seem to be running into some traffic here, which is leading to me, yes, that definitely looks like a blue flag for car number... okay, I can't see it on my map as of now. Number 24. So in other words, that was a blue flag for Becker, actually, our previous race winner down in overall 24th. And some more tight racing here with Melko and Oaks still being close to each other. Melko getting past. And Horsebox going into the pits. backer seems to just have gotten past Anderson and Richards, so there might have been some contact involved. We did have contact between 47 and 81, but that is a while ago. And now 30 minutes have passed. We are halfway. It seems like about half the cars have been into the pit for their mandatory stop. But so far, the top 10 cars have not been in yet. But Smilevsky, in overall 11th as of now, has not pitted yet, putting him in a great position for making some huge gains once the other cars start going in. But of course, it is gonna depend on strategy when these guys want to go in. Some guys like to get as even of tire wear as possible and swap at about the halfway mark to make the car more predictable. While other guys like to go in pretty late to have fresh tires to be able to push harder at the end of the race. There's also definitely an element of if you are in the rhythm, you're feeling good, you could definitely go past your pit window and wear on those tires a little bit more just to be able to stay out while you're in a good rhythm. Christie here trying to make a move on Tetley. Tetley now in overall ninth position. And Friedman has gone into the pits, leaving Oaks and Melko, who are still battling each other. Oaks making a move right there. And losing the car as they had a little bit of contact, making his way back onto track without interfering too much. But this leaves Melko in overall fifth, now with the lead for the AM split. I couldn't see that exactly, but it actually looked to me like Oaks lost his car just ever so slightly, leading to that little bit of contact. And as the cars are starting to pitch, Milevsky has now made his way up to 8th position. While Dave Young, still climbing, has made his way up to 12th. He is still sitting with the fastest lap of the race at 2:01.155. Lawrence now in the pits, meaning Hagen is just about to overtake him, and there he has the first position of this race. So my fellow Norwegian now racing from the very front of the pack, but he is about to run into some traffic, who of course are going to be blue flagged and obligated to let him pass. Hagen, as of now, has a 20-second gap and increasing to the next car. Korea just overtook Lawrence while Lawrence was in the pits, meaning Hagen now has a 22.5-second gap, which is comfortable while out on track, but not quite enough to let him keep those positions once he goes into pit. Melko now still in the first position for those AM guys, racing in overall 4th position. Dave Young about to catch up to Tony Herzeg. Now about to cross the start-finish line, making their way down to turn 1. Is Dave Young going to make a move already here? No, he's not. But he might go for a move here. Not being able to maximize his speed out, he can't get that position quite yet, but the gap is now very, very small between the two drivers. Dave Young racing with the 111 number after having won Split 3 last season. Here getting on the inside might have been a little bit of touching, but nothing too bad, having made his way past. So out of the top 22 drivers, only 5 of them have not pitted. We can see Korea and Bullion are in the pits as we speak, so we should definitely pay attention to where they come back out onto the track. Lawrence having gotten back out in front of Shmilevsky with a comfortable 5-second gap, meaning that if he can stay in control, he might be able to get away with the race win right here. With the other cars behind Hagen pitting, he now has a 33-second gap down to Melko in overall second, a fellow BMW driver. But the first position driver of the AM split with having he's now 10 positions in front of the next AM split car, meaning he might actually just have time to pit. And Dave Young making his way past both Korea and Bullion while they are in their pits, now in overall 8th, getting ready to chase Christian Fengler with 5.5-second gap between them. And Korea getting back out onto the track. Can Jardine? No, he cannot make his way past before that turn 1. We have another yellow, this time Stancer, having his car point in a really unfortunate direction there, but trying to get back out on track. He does definitely have quite some clearance before the next car arrives. The next car behind him is Fierro, who is racing him for points and is going to try and make his way past. But Fierro being maybe tricked a little bit to go wide there after seeing Stancer. Stancer definitely lost his gap to Fierro, but he's able to stay in front. Jardine now 0.2 behind Friedman, going to want to make his way past if he's going to chase the other cars. Horsebox here taking a little bit of an alternative line, allowing him to get on the inside. Oh, and the cars touch, and we have more contact, but everyone made it away rather well, I'd say. Friedman did probably lose a decent chunk of time for that, but his gap down to Pattinen at 4.3 is enough for him to comfortably get back on track. Jardine now going wide. Horsebox trying to get that gap, now blinking his lights after Jardine kind of aggressively made his way back onto the track. But as far as I can see, enough racing room was left, even though he did scare Mooney a little bit. Mooney not making his move yet as they are making their way towards the last 3 corners, making their way through 15, 16, and on their way to 17. If you can get a good exit here, you can definitely... It looks like Jardine got away better out of the 2, being able to increase his gap before turn 1. Here, Calabaras had an unfortunate spin. It seems to me like he has been pretty unlucky today with his spins. This is a difficult track, and track temperature has dropped to 8 degrees, not making for a pleasant experience trying to keep those tires hot. Friedman is back in the running, trying to get past Mooney. Having made their way through the S's, now on to a shorter back straight. Oh, and going off track there, but being able to recover his car and actually get a pretty good line going into that sharp right-hander. But it did actually lose him enough time for him not to be able to make a move just yet. Horsebach still flashing his light at Jardine, seemingly frustrated as he wants to get past, which is kind of understandable after Jardine going off track on the last lap and joining, I wouldn't say unsafely, but quite aggressively. Horsebach's having made up 7 positions since the start of the race. The only two drivers in the top 22 not having pitted right now being Hagen and Milko. And Hagen increasing that. Oh, and Horsebach's going off track here, making his way back on without causing any trouble. It's definitely getting too frustrated with the driver in front is never a good thing because it could lead to aggressive driving, making you prone to making mistakes. So if Mooney is letting that frustration go to his head, that is definitely not going to help him. Hagen cruising rather comfortably, I'd say, in the front, increasing that gap to 37 seconds. And here he is going... No, never mind. The TV camera tricked me into thinking he might have been pitting. He's choosing to go another lap. And as I was saying, if you are really in the zone, you're really feeling it, and you are in... if you are in a flow state when driving, it's definitely a good move to stay out. And as Hagen said, he has worked on both his pit lane entries, but I also know that he has worked for his consistency off season, because that did also cost him some points last season. And he is a dedicated guy who did put in a lot of time during the off season. Spengler here about to catch up to Ike Sky, who has made his way back up to 5th. So after pitting early, he has gained those positions back as the opposition, one could say, have pitted. A really close at 0.1, not making his move just yet. Sky looked to have gone a little wide right there. Going on to the start-finish straight. Fengler now at 0.4, but getting a great toe, staying close enough to be able to decrease that gap little by little, but not enough to make his move before turn 1. Korea also in a fight. We have 4 cars here fighting for a position. We have Mooney, Friedman, and Correa. Friedman actually has made his way back past Horsebox and is chasing Jardine. Oh, and a yellow here for Correa, who seems to have been hit. We do have contact between car 3 and 23. So Horsebox and Correa did touch. Freeman still more or less on Jardine's tail as Horsebox makes his way back. All 3 getting through that sharp corner. All 3 getting through the next sharp corner. But they now have from Jardine has 9 laps, Friedman 5, and Mooney 6 on their tires. So if anyone is starting to feel the tire wear, it's going to be Jardine. But with 9 laps on his tires, it should not be too bad. Because we do have drivers like Hagen, who's now on his 21st lap on his tires. Who now, with Melko having gone in, he has a 55-second gap to Lawrence, meaning that if he goes in, he should be able to stay in front. So if he can stay in front and control his cold tires well enough once he gets back out to get them back up to temp, he should be able to get a really great result this race and might actually walk away with the win. Which, of course, as a fellow Norwegian, does make me quite happy. Fengler and Young in a fight here. Fengler having made his way past. Actually, never mind. It seems like they switched positions. So I think Young overtook Fengler, but Fengler made his way back past. Dave Young passed again. Fengler going wide there, allowing Dave Young to run away, get himself a 1.4 second lead in this battle. Horsebox once again on Jardine's tail, passing who I think is Dog Meat. Horsebox fighting Jardine for ninth position. And they touch and go off. Jardine is able to get back on track pretty gracefully. Actually, Horsebox surprisingly gracefully as well, considering he was pointing the wrong way. But definitely losing him time and losing him positions to Patanen, Correa, and Friedman, and Russo, making his way past Dogmeat for a second time. Possibly a little frustrating for Dogmeat trying to go as fast as he can and getting blue flagged by the same cars multiple times. Chmielewski now putting in fastest lap, chasing down Lawrence. And Huggins' gap has dropped down to 52 seconds, meaning he's starting to lose some time now, and it might be best for him to go in right now if he wants a chance at staying in front. As we are watching Chmielewski and Lawrence making their way towards the first hard brake zone with the right-hander, Hagen is making his way towards turn 15, 16, and 17. And Lawrence running into some traffic. Depending on how this blue flag plays out, this might be a great opportunity for Chmielewski to get closer. Hagen going into the pits just as I predicted. Let's see if his lead was enough to allow him to still get back out in that first position. As far as I have seen, he has avoided any substantial damage to his car, which should allow him for a rather quick pit stop, depending on how much fuel he needs. But as long as you're not taking substantial amounts of fueling is rather quick, as we do have a set minimum refueling time. And as they are making their way down these last few corners, Hagen is still sitting in the pits, not yet moving. The gap rapidly increasing, and they are past. Just as Hagen starts to move, I think... No, he's still sitting in the pits. My mistake. We now have a battle for first place here. Ike Sky, Dave Young, and Christian Fengler quickly catching up to Hagen with the gap increasing a bit, but Hagen is just about to make his way back out onto the track, and he's back out. Dave Young having now just made his way past Ike Sky, with Christian Fengler following both of them. Depending on how easily Fengler can get past Sky, or if Sky is able to stay in front, this might be a great opportunity for Young to run away a bit. Ike Sky, as we can see on the on his rear wing, is part of the LNR crew, which is a different league, but they do race with us quite a bit, and we have really grown fond of those guys. We also have a lot of ERA guys racing in the LNR league as well. Now, with 10 minutes left, Lawrence is still in front, having created a little bit of a gap to Schmilevsky, Hagen in third, but Young rapidly catching up. And contact between the two cars. Yellow flag for both Fengler and Sky. And Fengler being respectful here, trying to let Sky get out in front of him. Sky fumbling a little bit, but getting back on track. Like we've also mentioned before, getting stressed during an incident, it's a very easy thing to get stressed. Your heart rate goes up. You're like, oh shit, I need to get back on track ASAP, and then you step on the gas just a little bit too hard and lose yourself some more time going back out. With Fengler now creating a 1.4 gap to Aiki Sky, being respectful, like I mentioned, which is it's just a great thing to see drivers owning up to their mistakes during the race. With Herczeg now trying to catch up a bit, but Fengler still having some breathing room. So Oaks here is chasing Friedman for that second position in the AM split, overall 14th, but Melko is right on their tail. It seems to me like Oaks and Melko have been having some great battles this race, racing pretty closely. Oh, and we have another yellow, this time Korea and Patinen. This is great for Freeman and Oaks, who are now making their way through. But Oaks getting blocked by, I think it was Korea's rejoin. That might be protestable from Oaks' side, as he was impeded pretty substantially right there, almost losing control of his car. Oaks now, no doubt, hungry to get past, going on the outside, trying to get that inside. Oh, and losing the rear just a little bit. It's like I mentioned, that Porsche, you just lose that rear end so quickly. It's personally, I think it's an absolutely terrifying car to drive. Bengler now caught back up to Ike Sky at a zero point 0.1, making his way on the outside, but Sky actually squeezing him just a little bit. Sky going off track a bit, going into the tight right-hander. Going on to the start-finish straight. Fengler this time being further behind than on his last attempt. Pretty good curb usage from both cars there, both maximizing the outside curbs in the corner. Fengler being the only one to hit the inside curb, gaining him a 10th. Blue flag car moving over, giving both drivers no problems passing. Little further up, the gap between Young and Hagen is now at 5 seconds, but it has been more or less steady at around that for a few laps now. So it might be that Hagen on his fresher tires. Dave Youngstars having done 20 laps, Hagen's having done 2. Hagen might have enough of an advantage here to be able to squeeze out that extra bit of lap time, which is definitely going to come in handy now for the last 5 minutes of the race, because I don't think as long as Hagen stay consistent enough that Young is going to be able to catch up. Fengler here losing time to Sky, having now to play catch up. Rub Oaks is once again trying to make a move on Friedman, with Melko having ran away just a little bit. Melko now being the first position holder in the AM split. We definitely see there's some tight racing going on here with multiple cars, but one of them, if I'm not mistaken, is Kalleberg, who is not racing them for position as he has had some incidents and is sitting in 24th. Freeman actually now going into the pits, uh, having already pitted once, I think, so he might have some damage to his car that needs fixing. This means Melko and Oaks is once again fighting for that first position when Oaks can catch up. If he can catch up, that is. Spengler once again at a point 5 to Ike Sky. Sky going a little wide there, earning Fengler some time. Fengler trying on the outside, going wide. Those two are actually right now, they have some pretty good space going both directions. They're also not near any of the other cars fighting them for position as of now, which means that any cars that pass them are going to be immediately blue flagged, and they also have quite a distance up to the next car, which is Paul Anderson in 22nd, meaning right now they can battle relatively risk-free as long as they avoid contact and incidents. Gaining a little bit of distance in that corner, inching closer and closer to Ike Sky. Spengler seemed to use a bit more of that curb right there, but did not actually gain any time. He's now at 0.4 gap. Oh, and Ike Sky braking a little early there to defend that inside, forcing Fengler to also brake a bit harder than expected. I do have a suspicion that that's what caused the last contact as well. So it is kind of a little bit of a ballsy move from Sky to pull that again when it did result in an incident last time. But then again, it's not actually his fault as long as he's not brake checking him unnecessarily. So up here, ooh, Schmilevsky was just about to make his attempt as they did have what I'm assuming was some contact. Looking at race control, I can confirm contact between car 3 and 71, which is neither of them. They are car number 24 and 51. So that was actually, it seems, Smilevsky making a mistake. And Ike Sky and Christian Fengler has had contact once again, with Ike Sky making his way back onto the track relatively easily. Fengler seemed to have lost more time. Smilevsky having now gotten past, but losing the car just a little bit. They might be on their last lap, which is why they are now racing so aggressively. It's always during the end of the race where it's elbows out because you are running out of time to get that position. Smilevsky now seems to be running away. His tires are older, but not by a substantial amount, so I don't think it should make a big difference going into this as long as they have both taken relatively care of the tires. Lawrence now catching up back a little bit. He might soon be close enough to get a little bit of toe, but they're now onto the last back straight. So unless he can really hit those last few corners perfectly, I don't personally think he can get past. Here we have Chmielewski about to enter corner 15, 16, and 17. And here they are going down onto the start-finish straight, and Lawrence is not able to get past, but does get that Bentley into a second place. And we have checkered flag for Chmielewski and Lawrence in first and second overall. We do also have checkered flag for Bellis, overall P20. Now checkered flag for Hagen, netting him a podium, which I think is his first racing in ERA. Yellow flag for Bullion and Cook, which is definitely not great, seeing as how they were in wildly different positions in the field. Bullion now down in overall 13th, now having to fight the now having to fight. Oh, he's actually fighting Korea behind him. More checkered flags now for Sky and Fengler. Dave Young finished 14th. Russo about to cross the line. Melko about to cross the line. Winning split 3. No, split 4. I'm sorry. In the AM split. That was definitely another great race. Surprisingly clean at the start, judging by what was rumored to be happening. Um, yeah, I think overall a great race. We had some incidents, of course, but nothing too bad. Now we're going to see for the end of the stream if we are able to get Chmielewski, the race winner, and Hagen into the studio. We're also going to see if we are able to um, get Melko in the studio. Just give me. While we're waiting, we can take another look at the beautiful livery video from ERA. So we are back looking at the cars parked in the garage. I have now requested the guys to join me for post-race interview. So first we're going to talk with Melko, who now won the AM split. Hello, Melko. Welcome. Congratulations on the win today.
Oh my god, thank you, mate. Sorry, I'm still exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a pretty good race. We paid quite a bit of attention to you and
Oaks.
uh, yes, and Oaks, correct. You're battling quite a bit. You're also quite in the thick of it, battling also with some of the silver drivers and with Friedman before he had to go pit.
Yeah, well, before that, I was still in the thick of it with Oaks behind me at the time. Then we kind of came together into Spoon, which gave me around 4 seconds of damage, and we both went sideways. That was really nasty for us there. But I still tried to stick to my strategy, even though I was losing around half to 2 seconds per lap. Advantage came when in turn one there was some contact ahead of us, and I was lucky to avoid it. It was not on my line. Oaks wasn't as lucky, but he still had the advantage from the pits.
Hmm.
So yeah, the closing moments of the race, it was really nervous. I was waiting there. I was like, oh no, 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 they're going to get past. And then I'll see that Friedman and Oaks were battling ahead of me. So I was like, here's my chance. One full lap later, and the inevitable happens. Friedman screws up under pressure, which allows me the position. And then it was just chasing Oaks for the hectic last 7 minutes. Got the move at the end, and it was like, please don't mess this up. Three quali laps, and I almost messed it up at the final chicane.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was quite a nervous race.
Yeah, we saw quite a bit of you because you were involved in quite a bit of battles. We also got the incident where it seemed like Korea was rejoining in not the safest manner, meaning Oaks had to brake pretty hard to avoid him. Uh,
The one in turn one, I think, turn one or turn two.
yes, that might be. I wasn't paying attention to the track map as it happened.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, great driving. You seem really in control of the car. I can see Freeman wrote in the chat that he got a drive-through that impacted his race.
yeah, I
So
was battling him behind him at the Dagners. I got a way better exit from than him at Dunlop and was threatening the move at Dagner one to force him into the mistake. Fortunately for me, it forced him wide enough and he tried to carry it as much space not to lose the position, which gave him his drive through. Dagner too, there was a bit of contact, I will admit, but nothing more than hard racing at that point.
it's most of this race. There were a few incidents causing people to spin, but I also saw a surprising amount of let's call it respectful contact. Contact where none of the cars really lost too much. Which is always cool to see the guys being confident enough to race hard enough to where they can scrub doors a little bit.
Confident a bit, but I think most of us were dreading Suzuka. The stewards were in there in the track talk, like the stewards were giving the talk, were like, this spot, be careful, not spin. This spot, be careful, break early. This spot, like, this track is a danger hazard on wheels at this point. So probably the silver guys and the guys who won were more confident. Others were literally fearing the track really hard. But overall, like, it really tested everyone. And I think, like, personally, if anyone wanted to have a good race, it would be now, especially after the updates that are coming midweek. That's going to throw everything in the air.
Hmm. It definitely seemed like it ended up being a great race because I know you guys talked about fearing absolute carnage on the Discord chat before the race began. But the race start seemed it seemed pretty more or less pretty good for I think turn 11 is where we got the first pilot, which is in my opinion actually kind of impressive.
Right. Yeah, like I think I kind of expected turn three to be really massive because you had 33 cars on track, and when you have 33 cars on track, you already have to be slower at the exit of turn two, if not before that. fortunately, the lads kept it together. So kudos to everyone in there, especially the silver guys in front, namely Darius, who won his race, I assume, and Thomas Hagen, who managed a P3 overall.
Hmm.
So I think everyone conducted themselves properly. Fankler probably would like to forget the closing of this race, but it is what it is.
Yeah, he was definitely unlucky for the last few laps there. He and Sky were fighting pretty hard.
Yeah, Sky really gave it to him, and he really was aggressive at the beginning of the race as well. Like he was
Mm,
slinging moves left and right. Like if there's an angle there, he went for it,
mm.
and he made it pay actually.
Yeah. All right, but thank you for the talk. I'm gonna have to bring some of the other guys in. But again, congratulations on the win.
Here's oh my shot to the guys, I guess.
Yep.
I,
It's thing. Oh,
Hello, Darius.
hello, Adrian.
Congratulations on the win. How are you feeling?
Thank you, mate. I'm absolutely got it. Absolutely got it.
Oh.
That took everything from me that day. I was being a complete stupid moron, spinning out on the formation lap, trying to heat up my rear tires.
Yeah, I saw it. I was talking
Yeah,
about how in ACC on the formation lap, you can be absolutely fucked if you're not where you're supposed to be, with way too short of a warning at the end. But you made it back there.
yeah. The thing is, I had like 10 or 12 seconds worth of aero damage, which was basically my first half of the race. So I like was fuck it. You go in now. You have to be fast on the exit without fucking it up, and I didn't fuck it up. I'm actually very happy with the result, but I think I'm gonna go to bed soon because I'm absolutely fucking gutted.
That is, it's understandable. It definitely takes a toll. I remember when I raced myself, I raced in VR and got tired already at like the halfway mark.
Yeah, especially at Suzuka because it's just 1 hour full concentration. It's just like driving Monaco without the points.
It's definitely a technical track, but I think the race went surprisingly well, considering how many cars we had out there.
Yeah, a
Um,
few tussles at the start. Sorry for Dave Young for that. He did an amazing quali, and I would actually like to fight that out in track. But
he was really unlucky at the start, getting spun by Fengler going out of turn one.
yeah,
Uh, so I'm sure he will be back with a vengeance last time. But the
I
funny
hope
thing,
so.
yeah, the funny thing is, I said kind of the same about you this race, because last race you were really hunting Fengler down, but then you had an unlucky incident allowing Fengler to run away. But this time you were able to make it last all the way through.
Yeah, and I managed to keep it together. Not like Thursday where I smashed the car into the wall and into the four last lap or last lap.
Mm,
That was unfortunate, and that was like a little bit of redemption for me for what I fucked up on Thursday.
mm. It's good to finally get that win and getting some good points. Now you just have to keep it going.
Yeah, even I mean, if I'm considering this is my first win against actual people.
Oh,
So
really?
this is a lot more. I'm used to driving on podiums, like second or third, if I'm lucky. But this is actually my first win against an entire player lobby. So I'm actually happy, and I'm jumping out of my mind because of it.
Yeah, congratulations. That must feel great. I
Thank you,
mean,
mate.
as a slow driver myself, I also have like a single race win in a public lobby where the car in front of me must have had a connection issue because on Nürburgring it just started flying and disappeared. So that was my first win. And that even felt awesome, even though the car in front was technically faster.
Yeah, but a win is a win, and you always remember the first time, and I'm gonna remember it was at Suzuka, a track I normally despise in anything else but Formula One cars. But I managed to hold it together for an hour.
I guess you're gonna like it a lot more now.
Well, I guess we'll see. We'll see if I manage to keep it together and I manage not being stupid. So I guess we'll just have to see how the season goes.
Hmm. Yeah, once again, congratulations and have a good night and sleep
Thanks.
tight.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
So welcome back, Thomas. That was a great race. Um,
God, yes. Very
because we were
exciting.
We're talking about your expectations and how you were thinking you're going to stack up, and that was a great result. And I mean, Dave Young had an unlucky incident at the start, and Fengler had some unlucky incidents at the end. But going out of that pit lane, you still had a decent distance to the cars in back, and you finished 5 seconds in front of Young, if I don't remember, if I remember correctly.
Now it was 6 or 7, I believe.
6 or 7. That's great.
I think so.
So I was talking about during the race that I know that you have worked on your consistency during the off season. Do you feel like it paid off?
Oh, 100%. I was consistent around 2:05s, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, or 2.5 seconds
Hmm.
through a lot of the race. And as soon as everybody started pitting, I was able to get clean air and not worrying about having to fight all the time. Was able to just keep banging that pace until I went into the pits for fresh tires, and I was instantly down into the 201s, absolutely just outpacing Dave Young.
Yeah, that's great. I also, once you were ahead, like you talked about a bit, being able to not have to fight, it seemed like you really got into a good flow state and making those tires last and just putting in great laps long before after everyone else. You were one of the very last cars to pit this race.
Yeah, I do believe so. Which was the plan. I was thinking about doing another lap, pay at the absolute very end.
Hmm.
Had a bad run through the chicanes, and I would have just lost more time
Ah, got
doing
it.
another lap. So I figured it's better for me to pit now,
Hmm.
get the fresh rubber, and just hammer it at the end.
Yeah, again, congratulations, and you're making Norway proud.
Yeah. Holy fucking shit. Yeah. I'm
Have a
so
good
happy.
night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Nico.
Hello.
Second place. How does that feel?
I feel really good. That was a hard race versus Darius, my mate. We drove him together since 5 years or so, and that was a hard race for us and for me. But I lost this first place in the last last corners. That was my tires are very done, and I
Hmm.
have just a bit too much fuel in the car. It was just a bit. And yes, I don't know. The Darius was so slow in the first time. He said he has just aero damage or so. I don't understand it. We was just a bit too slow in the first stint before the boxen stop.
He hit the wall on the formation lap, so possibly racking up some damage.
Oh, yeah, that
Um,
was
yeah, you did some great driving in the Bentley out there. I talked about how it's typically considered a beginner car where you sacrifice a bit of speed for having a car that's easier to drive and more predictable. But you really you got a lot of speed out of that car. But it's a cool choice because it's not something you see often. So what made you choose that car?
yeah. It's mit we try it before the seasons. Just some cars, so the Ferrari and so the Porsche and so other cars, and the, I drive it on every track some nice times with the Bentley. He's my style. He is very strong. You can drive some curbs very easily. But the problem is you can't. The fast driving is just a problem. You need the right setup, and so that's very difficult in the car. So in the first corners, the first where the SS, I have no chance versus the Ferrari. He's so strong, and the SS with the Bentley have no chance. So Darius is so much faster than me in the first corner, but in the second and the third uh, track tiles, I am was the same time with him. But the Bentley is very drive too fast. That is very hard, but
Hmm.
it's good.
Yeah, it's you really got a lot of speed out of that car. It's unlucky losing the position just at the end there. But there's always next time. And I mean, again, I'm really impressed by how much speed you got out of that car because I've never seen anyone drive that car so quickly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so
I'm
congratulations on the second place and have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
So that is going to be the end of today's stream. Thank you so much to everyone who was watching and have a great night.